the ungodly expensive Amazon Prime Middle Earth series started today.
This all came out of Jeff Bezos' pocket, didn't it? This whole thing.
Yeah. I had to laugh a bit. There was like a story. Jeff Bezos was interviewed about it this week.
Oh yeah, his son.
And basically, his son was like, "Don't fuck it up."
Yeah.
Like echoing the sentiments of the whole world in that. And 2 episodes in, it's all right.
It's all right.
It's all right.
So where is it in the Rings timeline?
Second Age.
Okay.
So it's after Morgoth is defeated, but before Sauron returns to power. It is essentially, because of what I know from Middle Earth history, and you know the big hint is the name of the show. It's essentially the telling of the tale of how the rings were forged.
I see.
So your main kind of point of view character, there's 2 of them. Actually no, there's probably 3. So there's Galadriel, your young Galadriel, who the reason I kind of wanted to give this a chance, apart from the fact that like I will jump at Lord of the Rings content, is that Galadriel is played by Morfydd Clark, star of one of my favourite films of the last couple of years, Saint Maud. So I was really happy to see her get such a big role because I thought she was incredible in Saint Maud.
Yeah.
And then your other point of view character, your other main one anyway, is Elrond, a young Elrond. So it's before either one of them are kind of elf lords of their domain. So she's not in Lorien, he's not in Rivendell yet. He's just like a herald for Gil-galad, the High Elf King, and she is a commander in the army.
Mm.
And basically, when you join the show, you're seeing she is still with like a battalion that is traipsing up and down Middle Earth, trying to make sure that. So essentially, after the defeat of Morgoth, Sauron disappears, and all trace of orcs disappear, and the elves are suspicious, and they are trying to make sure that all trace of the enemy has been wiped from the earth. So she's like part of the kind of last battalion that's left out looking. She's really good in it. I haven't seen too much of Elrond yet. He's kind of like the B plot, and you're definitely going to get a lot more of him because he in episode 2, it's hard to say spoilers, I guess, but if you want to skip ahead a couple of minutes to just like, these are things that have been in books that have been out for like half a century, so I don't know if it is like,
yeah, I don't know if you can say spoilers then, but just in case anyone.
Yeah, but he basically gets sent to work with Celebrimbor, who is the most famous elven smith, and he is the man who forges the rings.
Okay, right.
Which you will know either from reading your History of Middle-earth books, or you will know from playing the Shadow of Mordor games, because Celebrimbor is in those.
Yep. Does he make mithril armor as well?
So we actually just got to Khazad-dûn, where he is trying to get the dwarves to help them in their quest to build a massive tower forge. And he met up with Durin, who is a character from Middle-earth history. So it's like it's got some good stuff like that in it. So the other main character so far seems to be Arondir, who is like he is an elven ranger of some sort who's in the south, who's like patrolling one of the areas that used to be loyal to Morgoth, and just as they're starting to pull the Gil-galad declares that like all traces of the enemy have been rid from Middle Earth, so he's recalling all the outposts back. But just as they're about to leave, some stuff is going down. There's also then there's like a village of hobbit-like creatures, they're brandyfoots, and a mysterious stranger appears as if from the sky, and is now amongst them. And that is all I'm going to say on that so far, because they haven't even revealed who it's supposed to be, although you'll have some guesses pretty early doors, I would imagine, if you are sharp. But yeah, it's pretty good. I was expecting, kind of like with a lot of these fantasy shows on the streaming platforms, that everything was going to look like it was shot on a soundstage. Thank God it doesn't. There's a couple of effects shots in it that I'm kind of like, that could have looked a bit better. I feel like for all the money that was spent on it, that the original trilogy still looks better.
Yeah, there was a lot more practical shots in that though, wasn't there?
Yeah. But yeah, it looks good. The score is perfect. I feel like it's faithful enough and authentic enough to Middle-earth lore that you'll probably enjoy that. I think the people who are really... The only person I've talked to a few of my friends who are big Lord of the Rings heads, and the only person I know who is like, oh no, it's absolute bollocks, is the one person who I think is digging in their heels and was determined not to get anything positive out of it anyway. I'm not by any means saying that this is like a perfect show or, you know, is anywhere near in high as esteem as that trilogy, which sincerely I think changed my life in a lot of ways. Like I think maybe going to see Fellowship of the Ring in the cinema in 2001 was maybe the most like significant cinema visit of my life.
Wow.
In terms of like, you know, my interests and really getting into films and the craft of filmmaking, because like I devoured those extended sets with all the making of documentaries and stuff like that. I think that's where I really got into cinema. It was obviously my entry point into fantasy as a genre, which I think then kind of leads you into sci-fi and comics and things like that. I think it's my first kind of one of those I was super into. So nothing is going to be on that high a platform, but like as far as they are making this show, I am fine with it, and I think that making it in the second age is really good, because I think you were going to lose an awful lot of people just trying to retell the story of the Lord of the Rings. I don't think it served a purpose trying to do that. I think you'd be fighting a monumentally uphill battle, and the thing about all the history of Middle-earth books is there are so many fucking stories and eras and shit like that you can tell that there was no need for you to retell the story of the War of the Ring. So I'm glad they didn't. I just worry about like how much are they going to do the there's that guy from that thing.
Well, I mean, of course they are, because people want to see that though, Dave. Yeah. Like I know you might not, because you might be more interested in the deeper lore side of it, but for me, I'd be like, oh, it's that guy from that bit of the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. That would probably hook me. But these history...
There's a balance though, isn't there?
Yeah. All these history books, were they all written by Tolkien?
Tolkien wrote a lot of them, and his son finished a lot of them.
I see.
As far as I remember, it might be in the attic. I have a few of them here somewhere.
And it's just all world building.
Yeah, like so a lot of the actual history of Middle-earth books aren't written as like a narrative. A lot of them are like cobbled together from like correspondence and notes and things like that Tolkien made during his life. Right. Because he was this guy who would like obsessively build the world around the lore before he'd write the actual story. So like he was a guy
rather
who
than
like
after, by creating your own website before you start rallying against trans people, you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. Sure. But he had like all these like the Sindarin and Quenya languages and shit like that all written out and fully built before he was writing.
Wow.
A lot of passages that had use of those languages, and because he comes from the background of being like a massive history nerd. Yeah. So that was the way he saw it. Like he basically built his primary source.
Did you see the movie about him?
No.
I actually...
because
Go on.
It seemed very much like one of those,
I quite liked it though. I thought it was good. I thought it was interesting.
Where like... A kid is just like turns around to a J.R.R. Tolkien on the street. It's like, oh, you're not some Lord of the Rings, you know? And he's like, oh, I've got it, Lord of the Rings. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Like, there's no need to be a real Smeagol about this, Dave. But yeah, it was.
It's like, oh, he stubbed his toe. Oh, that's really sore. Sauron.
So you've got a bit of a Sauron there, Master Tolkien.
But I think it's 8 episodes this first season.
Yeah.
And yeah, good so far. I think most places are giving it like a 4-star or 8 out of 10. They're the kind of most common scores I'm seeing. So that's like, it's pretty good. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, it will be interesting to see how you go with it, because it depends on how, like...
Well, I mean, how big of a... I mean, like, Mark Robinson level Lord of the Rings fan, yeah. You know, now he's like, a big convert.
Look, I would have been perfectly happy for no one to ever touch Middle-earth again, but I'm also kind of quite happy for someone to go into it and tell another story at another time in another place, you know?
They will remake those movies in your lifetime.
They will. They will. Everything will be remade. Everything will be remade. But yeah, no, so far so good. And Morfydd Clark is great. She should be in everything.